Hi Porsche 911 fans, welcome to another DIY tutorial. Today we will be installing the chain tensioners. I will be installing the the passenger side because it's easy to film. The other one is way on the passenger side. It's at the bottom, and on the driver's side it's at the top, and it's right behind the distributor cap, so it's very dark and hard place to film, so I thought I'll show you the easier one. Now this again, I'll introduce the car. This is a 92 911 964 generation Porsche 911, and on this engine, this is the M64 flat 6 3.6 liter engine. You're looking at the passenger side. On the back side of the engine, this is, as you can see, is the timing chain. The cover's open, and we will be installing the tensioner cover as we're replacing the gaskets for that, the seals. This is what the cover looks like, and this is the new gasket. Now, before off camera, all these parts were cleaned. As you see, this one was had layers of material built up on here. So the purpose of this job is to stop, have a tight seal and stop any oil seeping. So if we don't clean it properly, this gasket may not do the job that it's intended for. So what I did was I got a piece of glass, actually it was a piece of mirror, absolute flat surface, and I got a really high grade 400 600 waterproof sandpaper, and basically I just moved this on top of the sandpaper back and forth until all that grime was gone. And actually, while you're doing that, you can see the high points and the low points until I got this nice shiny surface. I kept sanding it, and now it's absolutely flat. Now, as you see here, there's 4 holes here. 2 of the holes are for the stud to go through, and that's where we're going to be putting our nut and the washer on. And this other one is where the oil, depending on which side it's sitting on, where the oil will be coming in, and our tensioner. This is the passenger side, will be sitting on top of it in there. So what happens is there's a hole underneath here. This is where these are hydraulic tensioners, and I believe the 964 was the first generation that had this feature. This one happened to be off camera. I noticed that it wasn't flexing, so it looked like it was seized. I cleaned it up. Now it's moving freely, so maybe there was a problem with this engine before that I didn't realize, but now hopefully it's done properly. So I'll show you the 2 differences. This one, as you can see, is slightly different, as this is the driver's side, and it sits upward because the cover is at the top. The cover is at the top. It looks like that, when it's installed. And on the passenger side, as you can see, there's only one side that has this hole where the oil is fed in, and it will sit in here like this and tension this guide, so there's tension on the chain. Now if you watch my previous tutorial, I've mentioned that just adjust my camera a little here. All the parts that you need for this particular job, like the gasket and the other parts, I will list below, and also I will also list the torque. I will mention the torque on camera, but if you miss it, it will also be in the description, so when you're doing the job, you can always refer back to it. The reason why I'm doing these videos is I had a very hard time finding the right information for the various aspects of this job, and so I wanted to make other people's lives easier. Some people may find it informative, some people may find it entertaining. I definitely find these videos very entertaining. Before I had my car, I bought my car, I was watching a lot of these videos to learn more about the various aspects and features of these wonderful cars. Now let's start. First thing what we're going to be doing is here's the gasket. Now the orientation of the gasket is very important. So as this is the oil line, we need to put it like this. So we want to have the oil passing through here but not seeping everywhere. If you install it this way, it'll definitely work. It'll go into place, but when you turn on the car, you're going to have a nice oil squirting as there's pressurized oil. As if you can see back here, there's a tube that runs down here and into here, which feeds these tensioners. So basically all we're doing here is the orientation of this gasket is important. I just want to wipe it down one more time to make sure there's no debris on it, because there's like a rubbery, or maybe this is silicone material, and it will go in just like this. And we will tighten it, and first we'll tighten it, hand tighten it, and then we'll torque it down. But before we do that, let's put the passenger side on. The oil feed is at the bottom. We will install it like that. As you can see, it's hard for me to hold it in place because of the tension on the spring. What I'll do is I'm going to install one of the aluminum washers and try to thread on a little if I can. Yes, there we go. Try to thread on that nut a little. Now let me do the other side. Now, as I mentioned in a previous video, for those who didn't watch that, these are locking nuts. and there are lock nuts. For that reason, I can't hand tighten them all the way. I'm going to have to use my ratchet. I'm going to try to do it equally, so as I mentioned, we're just going to do it hand tighten, and then at the last we're going to torque them. Okay, that feels good. Let's switch wrenches. Now I've already set my torque wrench to it's the torque on these lock nuts is 5.5 Newton meters, and I already set it to 5.5, so I'm going to torque them now. There it goes. There it goes. Let's do it once more. Yes. Yes. And that's it. As you see, it's working in there. The other side, as I mentioned, is same process, except it's at the top because the tensioner is pointing downwards, and this is the driver's side one. Sorry, it's this way. It's pointing down. This sits on the guide, and this is where the oil is fed into this particular chain tensioner. After that, I will be doing that work off camera. The next one, the next DIY tutorial I will be covering will be installing the covers on this on these chain timing chain boxes. Before that, I will you need to remove, let me just turn this camera just a tad here. On the next DIY tutorial, I will be covering removing this AC bracket, but right now the nuts are off, and there's one more step that needs to be done. This pulley that drives the cooling fan and alternator, and also the compressor for the AC needs to be removed, and there's a special tool for that. I will show how that's done. Once the AC bracket's off, I will be able to get to these nuts to be able to put the covers on and torque them properly. And the reason why I want to take the pulley off is I want to inspect the crankshaft seal. Since I have everything off, I did see some oil, dirt, like sweating around here, and I just want to make sure if it is the seal. Since we're doing all this work, might as well replace the seal too while we're at it, because after we put all these components back together and then find out that we're having a oil drips is not going to be cool. So there you go. If you have any questions or comments, please write them below, and I'll try to answer them. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next DIY tutorial.